Hi there, and thank you for tuning into the Social Circus, where every week we dive into a variety of topics covering social media, mindset, and how to run your business. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Hello, everyone. Today I am joined by the amazing Marianne, who is the owner and founder of Thrive Admin Services. Hi, Marianne, and welcome.
Hey, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you on here because I think you might be one of those rare unicorns that exist in business that offers a service that has very few competitors, which is pretty cool. So for those of you who haven't heard of Marianne before, she is a Microsoft expert and she's a systems and document expert, and she offers a very unique service, as I mentioned, in her space. So Marianne, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what your background is and how Thrive came to being?
Yeah. So my background is all corporate administration. So I've done everything from reception to account support to typing documents, compiling documents, and then working all the way through to a corporate EA role with executives. So I've seen all of the back end of what it takes to make the front part in a corporate business look really, really impressive. And I've just always been the person who was happiest when it was a document or a spreadsheet that didn't work properly, and I could figure out how to make it work or make it look pretty, do something that no one else thought you could do within that system. So I'm a problem solver by nature. And I got to the point where I was a little bit burnt out in my corporate role. I was working some really long hours and I loved the work, but I just wasn't getting that. It's not so much the balance. I was giving everything at work and I had nothing left for at home. So I decided it was time to fix that. And also to be able to share what I knew with people who potentially wanted to do those things but didn't know where to start. And I'm all self-taught, so it was sort of proving that it was possible. And that's where Thrive came from.
Amazing. So I guess if it would sound like on first listening that you would almost be a VA, but you're really so much more than that, because your area of expertise in terms of Microsoft knowledge, I have to be honest, when you said that you were self-taught, I was like, wow, this woman is very clever, because I'm not sure if there's anything you don't know about Microsoft, which I'm always in awe of, because you and I are currently working together on a project in my business. And for people who don't know me very well, I'm a very excitable person. I love starting projects and I get excited. I hate detail. Okay. And so you are like my dream fit in my business, because you have this phenomenal eye for detail, but with that, a wonderful creative side, which is a very rare combination, because obviously you're working on some presentations with me and they're beautifully branded. They're so creative. And I feel so inspired by your caliber of work, just working with you. So tell me currently, what kind of services do you offer in Thrive?
So Thrive has sort of evolved a little bit. So I did start in that general VA space and did a lot of the same sort of things I did in my corporate role. And it has refined and evolved. And it is now more about providing, there's sort of two main arms. There's the done for you service, like the work I'm doing with you, where someone comes to me and says, I just want it to look like this, or I need it to do this. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the interest, all of the above. And I'll create something based on a brief and hand it over as a finished product. And that can be presentations, documents, spreadsheets, workbooks, all sorts of stuff.
And you forgot to mention, because I know that you've done this work with me, is helping when we've created documents, like when I'm doing tender writing. And again, my lack of attention to detail, I need to hand it over to someone who either goes, all of the headings are in the same font and it's all done this and it's all justified. And on top of that, you also do proof it, which is very cool, because when you have created something yourself, it's very hard to proof your own work. So
it's that set of fresh eyes that can just see it one step away and read that the sentence actually makes sense, even though you've probably worked on it 9 times and know the intention. It's just making sure the words are all in the right order.
Yes.
So it's
not editing
sort of
and proofing.
Yeah, it's not the technical stuff, but it's all that finished stuff that when you hand it in, someone else will look at it and straight away they'll spot that typo, or they'll spot that the alignment's out, or that there's a different font, or the colors don't match, or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's that sort of extra set of eyes on things for you.
And I think as much as we like to think we've done a good job, and I'm a good writer, but in my mind, I still know what my intent is. And so I come with that bias when I'm reading something like going, oh, that says what I think it's to say. And then when someone like you looks at it, it's like, actually, it doesn't.
I mean, I do it in my own
stuff.
Yeah, I do it in my own stuff. When you're bogged down in it and you're writing it, you just have to put it aside or get someone to just run their eyes over it, because you've chopped and changed sentences, usually to fit a word count, particularly when it comes to things like tenders and applications. There's a word count. So you've got to condense this very big idea into a very succinct paragraph. And by the time you've done all those revisions, you just are sometimes losing the flow that makes it sound like you still. So that's been probably the biggest skill I'm still pulling on from my corporate experience. Everything else is kind of a bit of a patchwork of other bits and pieces.
Amazing. So let's talk Microsoft and the suite of products and what it was, because I'm like you, I've spent many years in corporate, and corporate loves Microsoft.
Yes,
and when I started my own small business, you're suddenly faced with making all these decisions that you never had to make before, because you turned up at work and you sat down and turned on the computer and it had Outlook and it had all these things and everything just worked. And if something didn't, you called an IT person and they came to your desk and they fixed it.
Or they dialed straight into your computer and made it work, and then they went away with it. Yeah.
And to be fair, computers were a little bit clunkier, sort of, I've been running my own business for 11 years, so computers were a bit clunkier in those days. But when you're faced with, say we're setting up our own business or we're starting out, the temptation is to kind of go, I think I need all those systems, but I have no idea how they work. And I think one of the biggest changes that we've experienced is the idea that we used to spend thousands of dollars purchasing a version of a product. And now it's gone to this subscription-based model, which can you talk to me a little bit about what does that mean and how does that work? Because I think a lot of us, and I find a lot of clients paying for subscription, they don't really understand it. And when I say to them, this is what's happened, they kind of go, oh, I get it. So talk to me about that subscription model.
So yeah, you're right. Microsoft used to be, you bought a version of Microsoft Office, it was then, and you got Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Publisher it used to include, which we all used to make very fancy flyers and presentations. And you downloaded it onto your local machine and that was what you had. And then there'd be a big announcement and suddenly things wouldn't work properly on it and you would have to buy it again to upgrade. And then when you start your own business, you think, God, I don't want to have to do that. That's time and effort, and I'm not really techie and I don't know what to do. So
it's also a big cost investment as well.
It's thousands of dollars. Something like that. So Microsoft has evolved now into being, it's taken, I think, some tips from Google and the Google suite of products. And it's created this sort of hybrid suite of products that you can work with online, you can work locally, it syncs across all your devices, so it becomes this universal use product. The biggest thing I love is that it now transitions really nicely between Mac and PC, which has always been the issue with Microsoft. Hilariously, corporately, everything's PC. The moment I started my own business, I went, I'm buying a Mac, and that's what I did. So and I was concerned, thinking, gosh, I'm not going to be able to use all these things I know how to use because they just never worked on a Mac. And the fact that I can work on it on Google, then on a Google Chrome browser, then I can work locally, then I can check it on my phone, was really what I was looking for, because the idea was to be completely mobile. And I wanted to be able to work at a cafe, work at a client place when I'm traveling, checking something quickly to answer a question and having that flexibility. And Microsoft has remarkably, with a little bit of, there have been some glitches along the way for Microsoft. There have been some glitches along the way when I've tried to figure it out. But
I'm pretty sure Google's had some of those.
The pieces are all there. And for me, it's that familiar interface because I worked so long within them. It was nice to have something that I knew where most of the buttons were. I knew what a lot of the functionality was. So for me, it was just an easy fit. And then I started to play and I realized there was so much more packed in that I hadn't even seen before. And again, like you said, it's that there are so many subscriptions and programs, and you've got to have video conferencing, and you've got to be able to communicate with people, and you've got to be able to share information, and you've got to be able to access things all the time. And when I started, and I'm sure most people are the same, it's okay, well, I have to buy video conferencing software, and I have to have an online storage system, and I have to have a way to be able to share stuff with clients. And then we want to do, we want to be able to collaborate on things and, edit and work backwards and forwards. And so there's always a shiny thing being pitched that you have to buy this program and you buy this subscription. And before you know it, you've got 9 different logins for 9 different programs. And then you've got to buy another program to make them all talk to each other. And suddenly you've got to work 70 hours a week to pay for them all, because they're usually all due at the same time.
Absolutely.
And I think the tendency is that we overcomplicate things. So you go, well, I have to have all the things in order to be good at what I do. So I'll buy all the things and I'll figure it out. And you're constantly jumping in and out, and you're double handling, and you're putting things in one folder and forgetting where it is. And then you can't access it from another program, or the format isn't right. And I just thought, no, I'll stop, and just for my own business, I'll stop and go back and take a really good look at what I want it to do. And then how does that make sense? Like, what, in a perfect world, if I didn't have any restrictions, how would I like it to work? And the more I started to play and test, and lots of Google research, and I discovered that a lot of what I wanted to do was possible within stuff that I had and didn't even realize I was paying for.
Yes.
And I continue to find new things all the time.
I have to say, I'll have an honest confession. You sent me a document this week over via SharePoint, and I was like, what is this? And I'm going to be really honest, because I'm a total tech nerd as well. Never seen it before. And I was like, blew me away, because obviously it was a massive file that you sent me, and SharePoint allowed you to send that really quickly. And for me, I was able to view it in PowerPoint, and I could download it. And it was like, this is so cool. And I'm like not a Microsoft fanatic, because I'm married to a tech nerd who thinks Google's the end. And I was just like, I don't think you could do this on Google. This is super cool. Yes. So from your perspective, in terms of, I love that you found this solution born out of simplicity, because sometimes in our business, we do see people talking and we get very drawn into them saying, oh, you've got to have this and you've got to have that. And I'm always mindful of my subscriptions, because they can get really out of hand. So in terms of Microsoft, because if you have a Microsoft subscription, you probably just think you've got Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. And those are the 4 ones that people would use. But now I know that you have got an ebook and a whole video that I'm going to pop the link in the show notes, because it's super cool, that teaches people what else there is. So talk to me about that. Sorry, I'm fumbling over my words because I'm so not an expert in this space. Go.
So Microsoft 365 has a couple of different products. They've got a personal one, which is usually the one a lot of people start out with, and it's the one you would use on your home computer. And that gives you it's almost like Microsoft Lite. You've got all of the sort of entry level stuff. It's similar to like a student product. And then the business subscriptions, there's a few different models. I just have, honestly, because it's a cost consideration, and I don't need things I don't need. I've got what's called the Microsoft Business Basic subscription. It costs me about $280 a year, Australian dollars. And for that, I've got access to over 14 different apps. So, so you've got Word and Excel and PowerPoint. And then if you're a PC user, you get Access, which is your database program. Mac users don't get PC, don't get Access. And then Outlook. And Outlook, the thing I like about that is I have my personal Gmail in my Outlook as well. So you can add your Gmail and your Google accounts in. So they're the ones that people probably know the most. But then you've got Teams, which is your Zoom alternative. And Teams, I hosted a webinar the other week. You can host a webinar, you get breakout rooms, you can record, you can share the links. You can have up to 1,000 people in a webinar.
Wow. So that's significantly bigger.
And there's no time limit on Teams as well.
So Zoom, for those who you don't know, Zoom cuts you off at 100 people. And if you want to go over that, you actually have to pay extra for your subscription. And if you're on the free version of Zoom, they've now made it's 40 minutes.
That's right.
Regardless, because it used to be 40 minutes if you had more than 2 people, and now it's 40 minutes regardless. So I know that I have a paid Zoom subscription. And I've got a lot of corporate clients, and whenever I'm chatting with them, we always use Microsoft Teams. And there's a part of me thinking, I've got a Microsoft subscription. Why am I not using Teams? And I think it's again because Zoom have done an amazing job of marketing.
That's it. Everyone had, we all used to have Skype, and then we all got Zoom, and Teams somewhere along the way became this thing that was just a part of corporate, and people were like, oh, well, corporates use it or organizations use it internally. It never used to compare. But yeah, it now lets you do your reactions. You've got your chat function. You can put your hand up. So a lot of the things that Zoom was leading the charge on are all sort of slowly being integrated, and you can see them being added over time. And I just find,
to be fair, as someone who trains a lot in Zoom, because that's what I'm required to do, most of my students or attendees don't actually understand those functions anyway. So when I say, can someone, I can ask a question, I say, pop your hand up. People do this and they physically put the hand up. They don't actually use the hands up function. So it's not like people are great at Zoom anyway.
Right, that's true. But yeah, I find for me, so when I work, I create a channel in Teams for each client I have. So we can have an instant chat in there. We can do our meetings in there, and they're all in one space. I can share files. So it becomes like your instant messenger thing.
I was about to say, is the chat, because I didn't even know that existed. You're like blowing my mind right now. And so that instant chat's, again, the same concept as like Slack channels, because you've got a channel for each. Woo, that's cool.
And then so I've got a couple of clients where I've done a few different projects. So we have a team for me and the client, and then I have a channel for each project we work on. So everything's compartmentalized, and for some of them, it's easier for them just to jump into Teams and see the files or the planner in there rather than going into SharePoint. So it's all linked, and they just have it in their Teams at their desk and can pop in and out that way. So it just makes it more seamless and free-flowing than perhaps when you're doing emails backwards and forwards, or you're using different systems that you have to log in and out of. Once I'm on my computer for the day, I've got Teams on the taskbar on my computer, and so it just logs in automatically like it does with Facebook Messenger, and I've got them popped up, and I just get the little alerts whenever anything gets added.
Oh, that's very cool. So that is very much like Slack. And again, Slack can be another tool that you end up paying for. And I find, and I'm so in envy of you, Marianne, because I find I tend to work how my clients want to work. So I've got clients that set us up in Asana, and then I've got clients that I've got Slack open for, and then I've got clients that share Google Docs. And then it becomes really complicated to remember what client is using what. And the reason that's happened is because I haven't been prescriptive, because I don't have a method that I'm confident with. And so if I was like you and had said, this is how I work, come along and use it, it would have made my life so much easier. Because if you could see my desktop, I constantly have this Asana open and Slack open. That is not even from how I want to work. I don't like either of those channels. I find them really hectic. But I've used them because I didn't come with that expertise. So I guess some good advice that Marianne's giving there is, if you can master some of these tools, it will streamline your business. And that's definitely something I probably need to take away as advice today. And
I find sometimes when you say to someone, this is how we communicate and this is how we do it, and once you've got it, if we work again in the future, we'll do it exactly the same way. It just gives, I found there's been a few clients who've said, oh, well, I've used Teams before, so I know how it works.
Right.
So, I haven't used Teams before, but, can we jump in and do a quick chat? And we'll jump in and get through it. And I'll say, here's this. This is how you access everything. And then what it seems to do is it seems to make things easier, that they're more confident in sharing a document or sending a comment, rather than waiting until they've got enough to put together an email, or feel like they're wasting time by, sending an email for like one question, where I could probably flick a message back really quickly and say, yep, you'll find it here, or okay, that'll be, this time. So it makes it almost more like we're working together, like we would have traditionally sat in an office and sort of.
I was about to say, in that collaborative space that I think we can often feel quite disconnected from. And like you say, I'm a really conscientious emailer, and by that I mean I actively try and reduce how many emails I send. And I'm really hard on the fact that I don't just, if someone if someone sent me something, I always reply saying, thank you, it's received. I think that's important. But I'm then mindful, like this back and forward that can sometimes happen in emails can really overwhelm us. And like I came into the office this morning, I had 47 emails and I only clocked off at 6 o'clock last night. So it's not like I've been offline or anything. And you just kind of think, I wonder how many of these could have been not sent, or like you say, a quick, like a having a channel open, like I can have that instant chat, and it actually feels more friendly to have that instant chat going on. And like you say, it almost recreates that office scenario that we actually, most of us have been very used to sitting in office and having someone just across the desk from us that we can talk to. And there is a part of running your own business where you do miss some of that. You don't miss all of it, because you don't miss like the difficult office politics, but you miss the collegiate part where you get to speak with people, bounce ideas off. And I sometimes think that our creative juices get exhausted because we're not able to do that. And I'm quite excited about that. I'm just not something I've really looked into.
I've got a couple of friends who love, so Teams has a meme generator in it, so you can just so it can be like you're back in the office, because it is just, you know, and it's a really handy way. I find I've got a couple of clients and I know they're super busy and they've got crazy schedules, and I can pop a chat in and just, you know, ping them so that it lets them know they've had a direct message, and just say, this is, you know, this file's in there now, check it when you get a chance. So it's not that they've gone, oh, I've got another email and I have to respond to it, and then I have to click a link, and it's, oh, okay, I'll do that when I've got a second, and they know. So it flags it without it being,
it's more of an informal communication, isn't it?
Yeah. Without, you know, there's nothing worse than when that thing pings up and goes, oh, you've got an email, and you go, oh, I have to look at that, and then I have to stop what I'm doing, and now I'm confused and I'm working in this other thing. And so it means they can go, yep, I'll get to that, and they'll work through those at a time that works for them, so it's not as demanding on them.
Oh, I like that. So many good tips in here, and I'm mindful of time. I think I could talk to you all day. I would love to know, what is your favorite Microsoft app?
I am through and through, my happy place is Word. So Word is where I come from. I've worked, most of my roles have been with organizations or executives who do a lot of technical writing. So I've spent a lot of time formatting documents and fixing tables and headers and footers and creating tables of contents and things. And that's the thing that if someone said you can only do one thing for the rest of your life, that's what I would do.
Ooh,
formatting
that's
and
so interesting.
Pulling reports together and compiling all the appendices and things. I can sit in a room and have the music going and just play in Word all day.
You are living proof that there's whatever task it is that you don't like, it's somebody else's zone of genius. And I love having you in my world to call on for that, because that is not my zone at all. And I'm really bad at it. And I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have got some of the work that I had received in terms of tender if you hadn't been able to make things look so much better for me. Now, we've mentioned a couple of times that you've got some amazing free resources that people can access. And as I mentioned, I'm going to pop the links in the show notes, but I'd love you to talk about them, because I feel like people are going to get such great value from these. So let's hear about them.
So the easiest way to get started is I've got a list of 50 secret hacks for using Microsoft in your business. So like we said, if you're paying for a Microsoft subscription, you've got all of these tools at your disposal, and chances are you don't even know they're there, let alone what they can do. So, and it can be really overwhelming to know where to start when you suddenly realize you've got all of these extra things sitting and are ready to use. So this is a list of 50 different ways that you can use the apps or features within some of the apps to apply across your business. So there's elements of finance, elements of looking after your emails, client communication, collaboration, and then business process stuff as well. So lots of different.
That sounds like an amazing ebook. And as I said, I'll put it in the show notes, because I would love you to get your hands on it, because I'm certain that most of us have a Microsoft subscription and are using it using probably 1/10 of what we could be.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that one's really handy, and I am constantly finding new things. So I'm sure at some point there'll have to be a second version of that, because
so it's going to go from an ebook to a full book.
It'll probably just be, it's a constant source of information and content, and it's stuff that I really love being able to share, because I'm all about, I'm super lazy. Anything for a shortcut or a way that just makes things look super flawless on the front end, but hasn't required me to do 3 hours of work in the back end is always a win. So
I love the fact you call yourself super lazy. That would be the last thing you are. But I often say that I'm lazy, and because of that, I find the path of least resistance whenever I'm doing something. And often us as lazy people look like we're very efficient people because we've found the easiest way to success. So thank you for sharing that. Look, as I said, I think we could talk all day, and I think I might have you come back again as a guest, because I'd love to dive into some of the things that you've talked about in a bit more detail, because I have certainly learned some things today, and I'm kind of excited to go away and have a little play. So I really want to thank you, Marianne, for coming on and being a guest on my podcast. I know that my listeners have learned some really valuable things today. And as I mentioned to all of you, in my show notes, I'll have how you can connect with Marianne, how you can grab her ebook with the 50 secret hacks. That just sounds brilliant. So thank you again for your time and for being so generous and sharing your knowledge with us. It's been much appreciated from me.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll look forward to catching you the same time next week. Till then, take care, and make sure you go and dive in and have some fun with Microsoft. Thanks so much for tuning in to The Social Circus. As your host, Sarah Thompson, I am thrilled that you've chosen to spend your time hanging out with me. I would be so grateful if you could spare an extra moment to go and leave me a review on your favourite podcasting platform. And if you even felt more excited, you could share my podcast with your friends who you think would get great value from it. Thanks so much again for tuning in.